What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be working on the 408 stroker for the Mustang. Particularly, we're going to be working on the heads. I need to install the guide plates for the push rods. Those guys over at AFR are freaking awesome. I've called them numerous times, been super helpful, gave me a lot of pointers on how to do things, had probably a little bit of influence on what actually is sitting here in terms of parts and how everything's going together. Their instructions on putting these on, didn't really get it. I think I was going to do it wrong. Called them. They walked me through the process. The way it was explained to me, the way I'm going to explain to you guys, this is super simple. So I'm going to change the camera angle, get a little close up, and we're going to get into it. So I've had these lifters soaking in some oil overnight. Always make sure you double check your manufacturer. I think most of them are the bars face towards the center of the engine. I got these in here. Again, verify all the bars are facing the center. I like to move them all up and down a little bit to make sure nothing's binding. Next, I'm going to put my push rods in. There's the spec of my push rods. Alright guys, so obviously I've already got the engine in here. I'm going to edit this back into when I put the push rods in. But I had to swap these out for 120 thou wall thickness. I had 80s in. I didn't realize that AFR recommended the 120s on these heads. When I called and ordered them, they never asked me what thickness I wanted. Kind of mistake on both of our parts. They didn't ask. I didn't know I needed to know. But they were real good. They swapped them out for me. Just because of supply chain issues, it took me almost 2 months to get them. So I'm going to swap these out. If you guys are running these heads, these are the thickness they recommend you guys put in there. Just wanted to throw that out there. So I am going to offer one piece of advice. If you find yourself putting these push rods in after your engine's all assembled, obviously I didn't really want to do this, but I wasn't going to hang up all of this progress just waiting for those push rods. So it's kind of hard to line up in there actually. I would go through and make sure that all of them, you can push them against the hydraulic lifter, kind of feel the little spring in there, you know, and shine your little flashlight down there and you can actually see inside the hole enough that you can tell that it's actually aligned in the cup. Anyway, just my 2 cents on doing that. So first things first, we need to know the firing order for our engine. On the Ford engines, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for the cylinder numbers. And this is a 351 Windsor block, so it's 1, 3, 7, 2, 6, 5, 4, 8 for the firing order. Remember, some of the 302s, they used the alternate firing order on the earlier blocks. I think the HOs and the 357s all use this firing order. However, you need to be sure of that before you get started on this. But it's going to kind of be obvious if you got the wrong one too. So I'm going to first put the engine in top dead center. I'm going to line up the 2 timing marks here. The dots. Put right past it. Right there. Okay. So right now I'm gonna top dead center, close enough for what we need to do here on cylinder 1. I'm gonna put my wrench down straight. Now you can see that, yeah, you can kind of see, zoom it up here for a second, that my lifters are both all the way down on the base of the lobe. If these aren't on the base of the lobe, you're not ready to do this, something's wrong, backtrack, figure it out. So, got my 2 dots lined up. I am on the top dead center for cylinder 1. Both push rods are down, lifters all the way down. Remember, I don't have lifters on here, so I might have to push them down with my finger to get them down if they don't go down by themselves. So every 90 degrees, which is 1/4 of a piece of pie here, is going to put us to the next top dead center for the cylinder next in the firing order. So right now we are on 1. Now when I give a 1/4 turn, we're going to be top dead center, cylinder 3. Both lifters are down. Now is 7 is next, which is this one. I come up straight up and down. Both of the lifters are down. Next is 2. Come over 1 more 1/4 of a turn. 2's down. Another 1/4 of a turn. 6 is down. That's 5. That's 6 right here is down. Another 1/4. 5's all the way down. 1 more 1/4. 4 is all, so yeah, to push that one down, but it is down. 4 is all the way down. The last 1/4. 8 is all the way down. That's going to be our sequence for adjusting here. So I'm going to probably just do the first one, then put it in a time lapse and run through the rest. But as long as you remember that's the order we did it, every 1/4 of turn, once I put it back in top dead center, is going to put the engine in the position I want it to be in to adjust the next set of push rods. Actually, particularly the push rod guide plates. So I'm going to put it back down at top dead center. So I want to point out real quick, this is our intake valve, this is our exhaust valve. The intake valve hole goes all the way through to the intake port. The exhaust, it does not go all the way through. This one we're going to use the ARP cork lube on. This one we're going to use thread sealer. I also want to point out the AFR labels these guide plates left and right. When you install them on your engine face down, the orientation they say to put them, they will not be left and right anymore. This is correct. So we're going to put our guide plates in place, and we're going to put our studs on here hand tight, but make sure you can still move them around. We still want to be able to adjust them. Next, for our rockers, make sure you're installing them properly with the flat part and the adjuster nut both facing up. We're going to put those on there and tighten these. So I've intentionally put 2 sets in this frame. This set over here, I adjusted them in their farthest setting. So once you tighten these down, the stud's not going to move. The only way that you can move these from the left and to the right to get the alignment correct, which is going to be centered on the valve stem, is to move your guide plates left and right. So as you can see right here, when I push those together, it comes to the center, which would push these out to the edge, or if I push them farther apart, it'll bring the tips of the lifters to the center. So I'm gonna make sure that these are just hand tight, just enough to put some tension on them. And I'm going to line these up here. So I just set this set on here, and you can see I got those pretty lined up, but they're not in the correct position. If you just put these on straight, they're not going to line up. These ones are lined up, but you can see they're towed out a little bit versus these ones that are straight. So ignore those. This is what we're going for, and this is why we adjust them. So again, take note. Those heads are straight. The rollers, they're lined up to the valve. You come up here, they look a little off. It's alright. I'm going to pull these off now. Hold on to that. Look here. That hole down there, it's not lined up. That is okay. We do not care about the alignment of this rod to that hole or how straight these are in relationship to one another. We care that this guide plate is not binding on this, holding this in place, and we only care that this guide plate is adjusted in such a way that our roller is lined up to the tip of this. And moving this plate back and forth, that's what's going to give our alignment. Stud don't move. Only that rocker can dictate that movement. Once we torque it down, the stud don't move. So if we have that guide plate adjusted properly, that's going to hold the push rod in an orientation. It's going to keep our roller centered to the tip of our valves. So I'm going to pull off the adjuster nut. And again, you can see that those are not centered to those holes. That's okay. That's where we need to torque them down at. So AFR in their instructions recommends putting some black marks on the cylinder head here, just to make sure that when we torque everything down, our final alignment hasn't moved. I don't have a thick Sharpie right now, and I don't like drawing on brand new shiny cylinder heads. So I'm going to mark these. They're good to my eye right here. It might not line up well on the camera, but that's going to help ensure when we torque these down that nothing moved. And we're going to double check them obviously before we're finished anyway too. So I've put some thread sealer, Permatex. Put that on the one that has the hole that goes all the way through the intake port. And we're going to use some ARP Fastener assembly lubricant on the exhaust port. So now I'm going to do this whole process again in a time lapse. I'll line them up, make sure I'm happy with my marks. And when I come back, we'll do the final torque down. now we're going to torque these down. AFR spec says 55 pounds. I'm going to do it in 2 stages, 25, 55. I'm going to kind of hold my thumb here just slightly to make sure that my plate doesn't hopefully shift. It's 25. 25. There's 55 right there. Now I'm going to put the valves back. Now we're going to reassemble our rockers here. Come down here and double check our alignment. We're gonna have a little side play, but these things are dead on where I want them. Now I'm going to use the adjuster screws as a way of keeping track of which ones I have already torqued. Now if you remember, we talked about rotating the engine 90 degrees to get to the next set of pushrod guide plates that we're going to be adjusting. So we're going to rotate the engine 90 degrees. So we already did 1. The next cylinder is going to be 3, which is this one right here. So now I'm going to install everything, put the lube on all the bottoms of the screws, and go in the sequence that we just discussed, cylinder to cylinder, and finish all these up. Being we're going to be using 2 different torque lubes here, I went ahead and just did the thread sealer first on the one. Now remember, when you do the passenger side of the engine, the intake valve is the forward hole. When you do the driver's side, it's the back hole, because they're mirrored. Just keep that in mind if you're going to do it the way I did it right now. And now our leftover holes, all the exhaust ports, we're going to go through and thread our studs into those. Now I got everything on there. I'm going to go through, just hand tighten, snug everything down. I noticed with these, you don't crank them, but get them relatively snug. And they moved when I took the rockers off, so I have to do the whole process over again. So little snugger than maybe what you thought. Just don't overdo it. So now we're working on cylinder number 3, which is the second cylinder in the firing order. Same thing. Slap on my rockers. Make sure everything's seated. Top and bottom, they're in the cups. The flat part of the inner rocker is facing up, so you get a proper fit with your adjuster nut. Cinch these down. Just nice and hand snug. Line these up. That looks pretty good to me right there. I'm gonna hold my thumb back here just to make sure they don't move. Run these off. Now if you're really sure nothing moved here, I'm gonna go for it. Torque them down. Verify they're still in the center. Now that one right there, I'm not happy with. I'm gonna move it just a speck, which is okay. That's why we double check these. And basically that's the process. I'm gonna put this on a time lapse and go for the rest. So that's pretty much it for setting up my guide plates here on these AFR Renegade heads. Now I'm going to retop dead center the engine and check my piston to valve clearance.